Sean Baker was on my radar, I think, principally because of Tangerine, and I was struck by that. Sean was a filmmaker that I was following. And then I heard, actually, this is where agents are great, I heard that they were looking for someone for a role, and they lined up, a meeting, and we had that meeting, and it was pretty direct. I'm sure Sean probably knows more than I do, but I don't need to know because I got to do the movie. When I got down there, and production made some people available to me just to talk about, their lives, what their attitudes were, what kind of people they were. And then, of course, when I got down there, we're working with the people that live there. So they're kind of telling me what to do. The beautiful thing about Sean is he embeds himself in a place, and he can correct me on this, but I think it's like that experience of getting to know those people guides his ideas and his stories, or refines it. I felt like similar in approaching performing it. You pretended you lived there. That was your life. You took on the point of view of those people, and you saw how they live and what their concerns were and how they operated, and tried to be with them. And it's that simple, and it feels good because that directs you it keeps you honest. You don't make something that's built on your idea of something that you don't know about. You have an experience, and you apply it to what you're doing.
Haley, this woman's from next door, and she said Mooney did something to her car.
You're on 322?
No, Futureland.
Oh.
Sometimes, depending on what you're doing, you have to prepare before just to give you the confidence to, or get you in motion towards something, or to kind of have a kind of expectation, or a kind of hunger, or a kind of curiosity. It was a very natural thing. Working with a lot of people that weren't normally actors can be so wonderful because they're doing what they do. There aren't actor egos, there aren't careers considered. We're trying to make something with these people's experience. And the truth is, you try to be them. You don't try to make them actors, you try to be people. So that's sort of the approach, and that's the beauty of it, because you do have a social experience, and you do take on a different point of view in a most natural way.
Have a nice day.
Love you, Mommy.
I love you too.
Each movie is different, but in this case, what I concentrated on was being a manager. Watching the people that ran that place, and also talking to some people that previously ran the place. There was one guy in particular that was sort of a model for me, for external things, but also how he thought, and just really to know what his day was like. And you start copying that or imagining that and watch that, and you learn things. When you build a backstory, there's a tendency to try to point to things that aren't happening actually in the frame. And I think that's a danger, because then you start to show rather than do. You start to have an expectation that becomes inflexible, and is also guided by too much by result and too much by what you want to accomplish. I think in a good setup, if you make the world and you're really in that world, things happen and then you surf it. But if you try too hard to make them happen, they get tight, and then you start to lean into certain kind of tropes or certain kind of cliches, and even the people themselves do that. It's really interesting. But I felt the experience in the Florida Project was really clean of that. I mean, there were things all the time that were just handed to us, and it's like there was a helicopter ride place close by. Everyone thought, oh, this is a terrible problem. And it is for sound, and it's distracting and all that. And I think production probably tried to pay off these guys to not be running all the time when we were shooting. But after a while, I think the price wasn't right. This wasn't a very big budget. And we began to accept it to some degree. And that's one of those things that textures the experience, you know, and creates a whole other level that you can't write, that you can't anticipate. So you take that on. And there were lots of examples of that. One day, all these birds came into the parking space right outside the lobby. And people were like, we got to get these birds out of here. We can't shoot anything, you know? And just on the run, I think Sean said, go out there and deal with it. Deal with it like as the manager. And that was kind of doesn't advance the story, but it's kind of a little beautiful detail that just happened. You don't even, it's something that's improvised, but you don't even think of it as an improvisation because you're dealing with something. You're doing your job. You're a manager. The birds have to go. So you have a little conversation with them. So you get these nice little, very specific things that you can't necessarily even anticipate. And that you build on that, and it gives you a sense of event that's so important in cinema. Boys, good morning. Yeah, you got to go home. There's cars coming through here. We got guests. Bobby's the manager, and he tries to take care of people, but he's also, you know, he's a working class guy, you know, trying to do the right thing. But the situation is not perfect. People there, he cares for them, but they're also, some of them are real pains in the asses. He's got to not get scammed by them because some of them are, you know, that's a survival mechanism. So he's got to be tough, but at the same time, he's with them. He lives with them. He's part of that world. He's got a job. He has more security than they do. He also has somewhat a position of authority, so that removes him a little bit from them socially. But at the same time, those are his people, and he's trying to take care of them. That same character in a different movie could be, you know, a real motherfucker. I mean, could just be eager to throw people out, or could be, you know, not put up with their stuff, or could just call the cops more often, or help the cops, you know, evict people, things like that. He's in that place where, no, he doesn't want that. He doesn't believe in that. That's not the way the world is for him. So he's no saint, but he's just, you know, empathetic guy doing his job.
I don't have any money.
We don't have any money. You're shit out
Speaking
of
of which, you haven't given me this week's rent yet.
You don't think I know that? Chill.
While there was some improvisation, a lot of the events, a lot of the scenes are written. They're riffed on, and there's huge holes that can be fleshed out. Not so much with my stuff, but I saw him do incredible improvisation work with the kids, for example. Most of these things, I assume, came from stories that people told him, or things that happened while we were there, or things that happened when he was doing his research. But I do think it's interesting that there are very few, like, traditional dramatic scenes or things that, they're fragments, they're connective tissue. But the thing is, Bobby's part of that world given his position. He's around, so he's part of the landscape. And that's a good place to be, because as a actor, I don't want scenes. I want to melt into the world and have stuff, you know, breathe. It's not like he sets it up and then the actors make up dialogue. Not really, but at the same time, something like, there's a practical approach to it. For example, I remember in the scene where the older guy is kind of cruising around the playground, and I come out and I don't like the looks of what's going on. We know that part of the deal was he wanted to get a soda. That was his cover, you know? But the soda machine was way over there. So we had to vamp to get him from here to here. So that became part of the meat of the scene, because that's me toying with him, and that's me setting up, and that's me shaking him down to see if he is there for what I think he's there for. And he is further and further on edge. So that's an improvisation in a very good structured scene. I think it largely came out of that distance from where I contact him to the soda machine that we have to go to. There was this part of the scene that was invented that I think helped the scene because it made it more specific and made the relationship and what was going on a little more clear and a little more, gave it a different kind of depth. You know, I hear improvisation and you always think it's actors being clever. Not clever, just trying to do the things that we needed to do to get from here to there in the circumstances, knowing the character.
You're gonna play it that way, huh? Hey. All right. Charlie, coachman of Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
I think Sean has a natural empathy. That's why he goes to these places and he wants to tell these stories through these people because he values these people. He doesn't judge them. That's where it starts. So then when you get with these people, they become your people. You don't even pitch an idea of making them sympathetic or sweet. You just let people do what they do. And it happens naturally. And there's also toughness. There's some toughness. I mean, that was what was brilliant about Bria's character, for example, because there's some edge there. You know, it's not posed. It's happening.
I trust you.
Do you?
Yep.
You gonna put that in your...
May I count it? May I count it? Good girl, you got your rent. Let me count it. Get out of here.
Bye.
Bye.
When I first met Bria, I was so happy because I thought it was beautiful casting and she was there. She was it. This is a particular character. This is a particular way of being that she knows. And that may not be her life, but she knows the language. She knows the attitude. She knows the strut, you know? She was there, and I thought, man, she's fantastic. And she was. She was further along probably than anyone when I arrived there. I thought, wow, this is the film. I will say that it really struck me, one curiosity is when the film came out and got a good reception, I felt like she never got enough credit for how great she was. She got plenty of credit. But I think it was partly because some Puritan streaking people thought, judged the character. And she was so good that I think somehow they judged her. I really do. And the flip side of that is, I got some play because they judged the character and they liked Bobby. So your performance gets points, because of a certain kind of sympathy and feeling, good toward the character. It's a little messed up if you really think critically about judging performances. I guess I basically want to bang the drum for Bria because I thought she was fantastic.
What?
All of you kindly leave, please. Thank you.
You can't do that. I have the 45. Are you fucking serious?
Listen to you and your child. No wonder you're in this situation. Please leave the property. Right now, leave.
In the theater, we worked with child actors a lot and worked with a lot of people that weren't traditional actors or weren't trained as actors or didn't have actors' identities or career ambitions. They came from other walks of life. So I'm used to that. But with the children, they're closer to a sense of play. They can harden into a shtick. They can get tight. They can start to showboat. They can do all those things. These were good kids in the way that everybody worked with them. They respected them and didn't let them get away with that stuff. They kept them on the story. And it was about being with those kids. Those kids told me how to act rather than me telling those kids how to act. I mean, that's what you want to tap into. And then you have someone like Brooklyn who had particular skills as an actress, even as a young actress. So she had both things. And I think, obviously, that was a real anchor for the movie because she could shape things. She could drive. Sean's very good at, there was one sequence, I think in the diner or something like that, where he just fed her suggestions and she'd run with them. It was a good way to work. I like working with kids. You feel less likely to accept certain kind of conventions because they're wild and they got a good energy.
I see you dressed in PJs all day, every day.
Am I wearing PJs now?
2, if you're working, who's looking after Mooney?
Mind your own business, bro.
Funny thing, you never remember the challenges. Thank God. Working this way, you have to be patient and let things happen. Bobby has no, traditional dramatic scenes. And I remember toward the end of the movie, I thought, oh, he kind of piddles out, he doesn't have a good finish there. But it really wasn't important in terms of the movie because you don't want to tie stuff up. I guess that's the only time I felt kind of a creeping actor ego impulse come in and say, I don't know how the arc of this thing is. The fact that it was a sympathetic character, I didn't know it was a sympathetic character when I was playing it. That wasn't the idea. The idea was really to work in this way and to work with Sean and to be there with these people telling this story. I'm a real believer in that. And that's why, I'm always nagging Sean to work with him again because, no, I like that experience of being someplace and telling the story of that place and those people. It's not that you don't have a story and it's not that you don't come there with certain ideas, but that kind of rootedness that you have when you're working with people that aren't traditional actors and you're mixing it with actors. And I think it's a great way to make movies.
Hey, what's going on?
It's none of your business, bro.
It is my business. I'm the manager here. What's going on?
On any good film shoot, there's a million stories. I liked very much the camaraderie. It was quite a modest production. I don't know, there was something very family about it. And for all the problems at the Magic Castle, the people that were actually living there, some didn't want to participate, but many did. And they were remarkably generous because that was their home. And some of them had very challenging lives, but how they embraced the movie and how they embraced what we were doing, and not in a, bullshit when the circus comes to town way. There's some of that, but it didn't run very deep. These people really were happy to just have us telling a story that's placed there as worthy and interesting. Those people are living their lives and they really embraced what we were doing, and that was quite moving in itself.
I'm talking about ID. They got to leave the ID right there with me in the office.
You can't just not let me have guess what gives you the authority.
What, the authority? My job title?
I was very happy that it did well at Cannes, and then just generally I was happy with its success, and always nice to get recognized for performance by the Academy. I cannot look at it any other way than being very positive, to tell you the truth. Good for the movie, and it gives you energy and a shot in the arm, Plenty of movies that I like, and sometimes they aren't received well. And there's some movies that I'm not so crazy about that I received well. So to see a movie that was a wonderful experience, is a really good movie, and then have people respond to it, particularly when it's a small movie, is very sweet. Because it's just a lesson that if you stick to your guns and you don't pander and you try to do something that really expresses something important and has a level of truth and sincerity to it, sometimes people can find their way and they respond to it, and then you can do more of that.